Welcome to the Dyslexia Mom Life Podcast, your go-to podcast for dyslexia education and community. As moms, we want the best for our children, and when you're raising a child with dyslexia, that journey comes with unique twists and turns. Each week, we dive into dyslexia topics along with episodes on how to thrive in your dyslexia season as a mom, all with the goal of helping your child and your family thrive. Tune in for conversations that will inspire, inform, and connect you with a community that truly understands. You are not alone. We're in this together. Subscribe now and join in the conversation and community. You got this. Hey, friend. Today on the podcast, I am going to be talking about one of the most important things for you to be thinking about, your relationship. Your relationship with your child. Thinking about it from struggling to a strength, how you can prioritize your relationship while raising your dyslexic kiddo. That's what I'm going to talk about today. I mean, when you're thinking about, all the navigating you're doing with school struggles, the constant homework battles or exhaustion at the end of the day, and advocating for your child's needs sometimes daily, it's easy to let the stress take over and the overwhelm. But here's the truth. The number one resource your child needs is not a tutor, not an advocate, or even a structured reading program. What she or he needs is you. Your number one purpose and goal is to put your relationship first, and this episode shares ways to put your relationship first, even in the toughest moments. Thank you for being here today and choosing to listen to the podcast. It means the world to me, truly. And if you are enjoying the podcast episodes, if you could just for a second pop out and give me a review if you're listening to this on Apple Podcast, so that way other moms and families can find us as well. So let's jump back in. So when you think about dyslexia, it really does take an emotional toll on you and your child. I mean, as moms, we feel every struggle our child faces. When they hurt, we hurt. And sometimes, I feel it. I feel it in my bones, especially when they're sick, right? And with dyslexia, with all the frustrations, the school struggles, the self-esteem dips, the endless advocacy, it can take a real toll on the two of you. So then what happens? Well, homework becomes a battle. Your child starts feeling like they're just not good enough. And you start questioning if you're doing enough and are you doing the right things. This pressure to fix things can make you forget the most important thing, your child's heart. When frustration builds, you risk turning every conversation into a correction instead of a connection. Let me say that again. When frustration builds for you and your child, it seems like we risk the opportunity to continually to have a conversation of correction instead of connection. No wonder our kids are so frustrated. I can remember at the beginning, I felt a lot of personal pressure to find the best school, the best program. Our current school had done all they could do for her, and they were amazing in pre-K, kindergarten, first grade. But the teacher said, we've done all that we can do for her. She needs more. From figuring out how many sessions of tutoring she needed and speech therapy, all those pieces, trying to figure all those pieces out. And with who, too? Who was the best person to provide those services for her at the stage she was at? And even more that weighed on my shoulders was how to explain dyslexia to our first grader. Well, years later, she told me that she knew something was different, as the other students learned to read chapter books with ease, and writing was so much easier for her friends, and it was such a struggle, not to mention how long it took to complete assignments in class. There were many days that I felt hopeless and was quite literally out of my comfort zone. Once I focused on my daughter and not the dyslexia, everything changed for us. We wanted her to enjoy childhood, and we spent time deciding what was the best way to do that. And so we decided to go to down the route, or we chose the journey and the road that led us to a dyslexia school. And that gave us the opportunity to protect our time as a family. It gave us time after school to explore other interests, and really, quite frankly, just to give everyone an opportunity to get some rest as needed. That move, as if you've listened to the podcast, other episodes, you may have heard me say, that move took us literally moving across Atlanta to find opportunities that did not exist in the South Side, as they say it, and on the other side of Atlanta where we were currently living. So we uprooted and moved. And that was a decision we didn't take lightly, but we were in a position where we could make that work at the time. So you may be wondering, how do you get to the next step? How do you go from shifting your mindset of fixing to supporting? It really is natural. It's natural for us to want to fix the struggles and make life easier for our children. That's what we do. But dyslexia isn't something to be fixed. It's a difference. It's a different way to understand. It's a different way of learning and thinking, and it can be struggling. There are going to be times of struggle, but also not having every decision you make be focused around that is helpful. So what if you shifted your focus from let me say this again. So what if you shifted your focus from how do I help my child read better to how do I make sure my child feels loved, safe, confident, no matter what? How does that feel? When you think about these two different questions, how do I help my child read better? How does that make you feel? Does it put you in a position where you're trying to fix things and it feels like, I got to make this decision and it weighs really heavy on me? As opposed to how do I make sure my child feels loved, safe, confident, no matter what? It's a different way to approach it for sure. So here's a couple other things that may be helpful as you're thinking about how to shift your mindset in the way that you respond, right? How you're responding to situations. First, listen before you teach. So the one thing that we can all do is before we jump in to make corrections, validate your child's feelings. I see this is really hard for you. I'm here to help. So you can see how that has such a different tone for a child when they really are struggling, right? And acknowledging that struggle and helping where they're at, meeting them where they're at. Also, separate homework from your relationship. If it is a real struggle, right? It's a real struggle. You might consider an outside tutor or someone else that can really work with your child, so you're not always the one enforcing reading and writing. This way, you can be mom first, not just the homework enforcer. Wouldn't that be nice? If you have other children, you could pair them up to work together as well. I know siblings don't always work well together, but if there's particular pieces where your child is really struggling, perhaps a tutor could help with those pieces. And another approach to thinking about supporting from a more supporting role than a fixing role is celebrating daily strengths. Make it a habit to point out the amazing things that your child is doing that have nothing to do with school. Things like, you have such a creative mind, or I love how kind you are to your little brother. Finding little pieces in their daily life, not fake, but really acknowledging where you see the goodness in them and where they can feel good about themselves. Let's talk about some practical ways to strengthen your relationship and that connection, even in the midst of all of the challenges that you may be thinking about and working through with your child. So one is create a no school talk zone. This could be at bedtime, at dinner, maybe weekend mornings. Have a time where school isn't the focus. Talk about life instead, like what's going on with you as a family, maybe interest, maybe travel plans. Where would you like to go? Is there a place? What has been your favorite adventure that we've had as a family? Maybe talk about their dreams. What do they want to do? Like, what are some things they're really interested in? Not only does this take the focus off of academics, but it really deepens your connection with your child when you can better understand where they're coming from. 2, what about building in some success moments? So finding activities where your child shines. If your child's good at art or building things or music, whatever it might be, what can you do and what can you highlight that makes them feel confident? So let me tell you a little story. So last weekend, I actually flew my daughter to Dallas, Texas for a Texas Teen Book Festival. think that's the acronyms. Yeah. Texas Teen Book Festival. It was the 11th year that they had done that in the Irving, Texas area. I had no idea this existed. And when I tell you there were authors everywhere, we saw them at, in the hallway. We saw them at the swag shop. We saw them at our hotel. We saw them walking across the street to the convention center. Authors were everywhere. They had panel discussions. They had a bookstore where you could buy all these signed copies of these authors' books that were there for the panel. And gosh, I'm trying to remember how many were there. It was over 50 authors. And so we got to sit in on some panel discussions. There was panel discussions on writing. And then there were all these book companies there giving out freebies, posters, sweatshirts, bags, like tote bags and posters, all kinds of things. I would have never, ever thought that we would have went to something like this. It was for it was young adult books and for middle schoolers. And so as our daughter is in 8th grade and like trying to get out of middle school, it was such a great opportunity to be immersed with all these amazing authors. So her favorite author of all times who got her reading in 6th grade was Shannon Messenger. And she has these book series, the Keeper of the Lost Cities. And they're huge. They're like 800 pages long. And I knew how much she loved this author, and I had seen on Instagram where the author said, I can't wait to go to Texas. And I was like, oh, okay, let me check this out. The event is free, and there were thousands of kids there from all over Texas that they had brought in. So it was really a neat experience. And that particular author really opened our daughter's eyes to reading and characters and what it looks like when it's not academic. And now she wants to be an author. So really just pouring into what lights her up. And I can't tell you how many books we bought, but we have stacks of them. We put them in 2 suitcases and a carry-on, and we were able to have an opportunity for a book signing at the end of the day, and she got to meet that favorite author and get her to sign her book. And you know, it's making what they call those core memories. Like that was an opportunity to really see her shine and really give her an opportunity for us to build a deeper connection around something she enjoys. All right, let's move on to number 3. How else can you strengthen your relationship? Use laughter. Laughter as a reset. I mean, when stress is high, find something silly to do together. If it's a joke or a dance or a funny voice when you're reading a book, it could be putting on your favorite music and dancing around, but like do something fun and silly, especially when you know, like this is such a stressful day. And so, you know, if it's that you may have to get dad to do those good dad jokes that kids love but hate at the same time. So, you know, another way though, just to kind of reset the situation and build that relationship. And 4th is to show up. Show up just to love on them. Surprise them with an unexpected hug, a love note in their lunchbox. I mean, maybe not at middle school, but maybe for our younger kids, are a just because treat. So something they really enjoy. It could be their favorite milkshake. Like I've got a good friend that does milkshake Mondays for her kids. But let them know that they're valued beyond their reading ability and outside of academics. You just love them because of who they are. And finding ways to show them that really will strengthen that relationship. So let's end where we started. Like I said earlier, the number one thing that is going to be most important for your child is you. You are the best resource, the best advocate. Everything starts and ends with you. The way that you react in situations, they look at that. You're their role model, the first one they ever have. And they look to us for guidance. And at the end of the day, yes, when we're walking through that or down that path of dyslexia and walking through that journey with our child, there are some really tough days. And they just need to know that they can look across the room and you're there and you've got them and you're going to be there no matter what. And so, you know, like I said earlier, when you start shifting your focus toward supporting your child and not just fixing them, because they don't need to be fixed. They're not broken. Just love on them, because at the end of the day, years from now, they may not remember that you stayed up helping them with that difficult math problem that they had or that really hard writing assignment that they had. They're going to remember that you were there, you were present and there and for them and whatever that they needed and whatever that looked like. And building opportunities to really lean into what they love and lean into their strengths and the things that bring them joy, that's what's going to build that lifelong friendship, because our kids will grow up and, that dyslexia piece will always be part of who they are. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, again, I would love for you to give us a review on Apple Podcasts if that's where you're listening to this today. And if you want more information about dyslexia, please listen to some of the other past episodes as well. Episode 130 talks all about understanding your child's dyslexia. It's a short little workshop to kind of help you get going. If you want to join other amazing moms raising children with dyslexia, you can join our Dyslexia Mom Life podcast community. It's a Facebook group. You can just search for that with Dyslexia Mom Life and you'll find that. You will have to ask and I'll let you in there. It's no cost, but we do try to keep it to people that have the same similar interest, if you're able to say it that way. It's really a supportive space, and I want to make sure it's a safe space for you to connect with other moms, podcast guests, and with me as well. So if you haven't, please leave a review for the show, join the conversation over at the podcast community, and if you've got friends that may also be struggling, please share this episode with them. And remember, you're not alone. You got this.